Sometimes the smallest act of kindness, one that goes unnoticed by most, can echo through the heart of someone who's been forgotten by the world. And sometimes, it takes a quiet girl and an anonymous gift to awaken a soul that once believed it had nothing left to give or receive. Sometimes the most extraordinary connections begin in silence. Mira had given without expecting anything in return. Arif had received something no money could buy. And in a city of millions, where hearts are often drowned in noise, two strangers had unknowingly begun a journey that would change them both, forever. This was just the beginning, because what happens next is where love finds its voice. Arif couldn't sleep. It had been 3 nights since the gala, and still, her image lingered like a half-remembered melody, gentle, haunting, impossible to forget. He didn't even know her name, but he remembered everything else. The frayed sleeves of her sweater, the way her fingers curled protectively around her book, the stillness in her that somehow silenced the world around her. The memory was maddening. He wasn't used to wanting things. Not anymore. Not after losing his mother. Not after watching the empire they built turn to ash. But this girl with her gift of sincerity, it awakened something in him. Not desire, not exactly. Not yet. It was more fragile than that. Hope. And hope was dangerous. Still he had to know more. So the next morning, he returned to the only clue he had, the photo. The background showed a cracked cement signboard. Bal Pragti Pathshala, Dadar West. He remembered every inch of that image now. His foundation had never worked with this school. Had been missed. Overlooked. Like its anonymous donor. Like her. By noon he stood outside the school gates. A rusted swing groaned in the wind. Children's voices drifted from the single classroom. Laughter, recitations, chalk against slate. The principal, an older woman with kind eyes and oil-streaked hair, greeted him with surprise. "We didn't expect visitors. Especially not you, sir." He hated the title but nodded politely. "I'm not here as anyone important. Just curious. About the woman who made this donation." He showed her the photo. The principal smiled. "Yes, Mira. Quiet girl. She reads to the children every Sunday. Teaches them new words. Never asks for anything." Arif's breath caught. Mira. He finally had her name. That evening, Mira shelved returned books at the city library. Her small sanctuary tucked between 2 crumbling buildings off Mahatma Gandhi Road. The air smelled of dust, ink, and history. Her hands brushed against leather-bound poetry, dog-eared fiction, books she knew better than people. She loved this place. It didn't ask her to speak. Here she could disappear in silence and stories. But today something felt off. As she placed a copy of the namesake on the shelf, she noticed a shadow near the reading table. A man sat there watching her, not in a predatory way, but with something like recognition. He looked vaguely familiar. Like she had seen him in a dream she forgot the moment she woke. Black suit. Tired eyes. A strange gentleness about him. He held a book in his lap but hadn't turned a page. Their eyes met. For a second. She quickly looked away. He didn't. "Do you work here?" he asked softly. She nodded. "Just part-time." "I liked your letter." Her blood turned to ice. She looked up slowly. "What letter?" He slid the photo across the table. "A school box. The children." Her breath hitched. I didn't write it for attention." "I know," he said. "That's why it mattered." Silence stretched between them. Heavy but not uncomfortable. "I'm Arif," he said. "A long time ago, people knew me for all the wrong reasons." Mira hesitated. "I know who you are. But I don't believe everything people say." A smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. The first real one in years. "Neither do I." Over the next few days, Arif returned to the library. Always in the afternoons. Always alone. He brought old books he wanted to donate. Sat in the same corner. Never intruded. Never pried. Just existed near her like a quiet echo. And slowly Mira softened. They started with books. Discussions about Rumi. Shared admiration for Toni Morrison. Quiet laughter over the absurdity of Murakami. He never spoke about money. She never asked about it. Instead, they talked about invisible things. Loneliness. The price of being forgotten. Mira confessed she used to be mute for 2 years after her father died. Arif admitted he hadn't visited his mother's grave since her passing. These weren't things people usually shared. But they weren't trying to impress each other. They were just being. One evening it rained hard, sheets of water hammering the library windows. Mira offered him a cup of vending machine chai, apologizing for its bitterness. He took it gratefully. They stood by the window, watching the street blur into watercolors. "Why did you stop everything?" she asked, barely above a whisper. "The foundation. The work." He looked away. "My mother was the heart of it all. When she died, the board turned it into a business. Not charity. They used her name for headlines. I walked away before I burned it all down. And now, I don't know. Your gift. It reminded me of what it used to be." She didn't say anything. She didn't need to. Her presence was answer enough. But outside the library the world was watching. Arif's appearance at the gala had made quiet waves. His sudden visits to a forgotten school and a public library hadn't gone unnoticed. The media began whispering again. Reclusive millionaire seen with mystery girl. Has Arif Malhotra found a reason to return? Who is the woman behind the box? It made its way to her inbox, her doorstep, even the library board. One day, Mira came to work and found a reporter at the gate. "Are you the girl from the Gala story?" She said nothing. But the silence was enough. By nightfall her photo was online. Arif found her in the alley behind the library that evening. Face pale, hands trembling. "They're following me," she said. "I didn't ask for any of this." "I'll make it stop," he promised. But his words felt hollow. Because some storms once started don't stop just because you want them to. Their quiet connection, born in shadows and stories, was now being dragged into the spotlight. Mira, who had always hidden from attention. Arif, who had once drowned in it. And in the rising noise, their fragile bond would soon be tested. By power, by the past, and by the price of being seen. But love. Love had already begun its quiet bloom. And some blooms survive even the harshest storms. The rain had stopped, but the downpour inside Mira hadn't. She sat by her bedroom window, knees drawn to her chest, staring out into the quiet night. Downstairs, reporters still lingered by the gate. The sound of distant camera shutters made her stomach twist. Her safe little world, built from silence, books, and invisibility, was gone. Arif had promised to make it stop. But the truth she hadn't said out loud. She didn't blame him. She blamed herself for believing something beautiful could stay hidden in a world so hungry for stories. And now she was the headline. Across the city, Arif sat in his high-rise apartment for the first time in weeks. Not because he wanted to be there. 'Cause he had to think. The press was circling. The Malhotra Foundation board had called 3 times. Investors, journalists, even an ex-fiancé he barely remembered had reached out, trying to twist this into something convenient. Everyone wanted something. Except her. And maybe that's why he couldn't let her get hurt. The next day, Mira found a letter on her doorstep. No signature. Just a card, thick and expensive, with words written in clean, sharp ink. "I can't erase the noise, but I can give you distance. Come away with me. No cameras. No questions. Just quiet." She stared at it for a long time. Half of her longed to run, to leave this city, the whispers, the flashing lights. The other half clung to the life she had fought to build. Her library, her school children, her independence. Was love worth erasing yourself for? She didn't know yet. Later that evening, she walked into the library and found him waiting. He didn't say anything at first. Just looked at her like he was trying to memorize the quiet parts of her again. "I wrote the letter," he said. "I know. I mean it. Mira hesitated. Running away doesn't erase things. I'm not asking you to run. I'm asking you to breathe with me. Away from all this. She shook her head, slow and conflicted. I'm not someone who belongs in your world, Arif. He stepped closer. That's the point. I don't want that world. I want yours. They left that night. Not far. Just a few hours away to a tiny mountain town called Gangad, where no one knew their names. They stayed in a small cottage, no Wi-Fi, no press, just the sounds of wind and rustling leaves. For the first time, Mira let herself exhale. They spent mornings walking quiet trails, afternoons reading aloud by the fireplace, and nights tracing constellations with their fingers. Arif started smiling more, laughing even. He cooked. He danced terribly. He told her about the Foundation's earliest days, before the greed, before the suits. And Mira, she spoke. About the guilt of surviving when her father didn't. About loneliness so old it felt like a second skin. They made no promises, no declarations, just presence, and it was enough. But peace, as always, is never left untouched. On their 6th night a phone rang. Not theirs. A local innkeeper brought a message. Arif's old business partner had died in a car crash. The same partner who had betrayed the Malhotra name years ago, siphoning money from their education trust. The scandal that led Arif to disappear in the first place. Now, with his death, came a confession letter. One that cleared Arif's name. And put him back in the spotlight overnight. They returned to Mumbai to chaos. The media flipped their narrative. Arif Malhotra, the fallen heir who was innocent all along. From shame to savior. A love story blossoms. But Mira wasn't part of their happy ending. Because the foundation board had other plans. Arif was back. And they wanted him to make an example. Take charge, rebuild, stand tall. Which meant Mira needed to disappear again. One board member approached her privately. A woman with a kind smile and cold eyes. You're a good girl, Mira. But you know how this works. He's needed. You're a liability. Mira held her ground. I'm not here for a seat at the table. Good, the woman said. Then step away before the table crushes you. That night, Arif found Mira at the school. She sat among the children, reading them The Velveteen Rabbit. Her voice cracked a little when she reached the line. Once you are real, you can't become unreal again. It lasts for always. He waited until the children left. Then he knelt beside her. I want to do it all with you, Mira. Fix the foundation. Rebuild. Give it meaning again. She looked at him, tears glistening. You don't need me for that. I don't need you, he said quietly. I choose you. But Mira shook her head. Then choose me quietly. Away from lights. Away from power. Or not at all. Love, real love, asks not for grand gestures, but for truth. And the truth. Arif was at a crossroads. One path led to legacy. The other, to love that asked for nothing but presence. He couldn't have both. Not yet. And Mira. She had already given all she had. Now she would wait. Not for a hero. But for the man she saw when the world wasn't watching. The city pulsed louder than before. Billboards lit with Arif's name. Reformist. Idimmer. The billionaire who came back. He became the new face of the Malhotra Foundation. A media darling. Interviewed, applauded, praised for returning with humility and a mystery love who had inspired him. But behind the camera flashes and curated statements, Arif felt torn in two. Mira hadn't left, but she'd gone quiet. She stopped returning his calls. Stopped meeting him at the library. The space between them wasn't anger. It was resignation. A silence too familiar to both of them. She had watched her world vanish before. Now she was watching him vanish too. Arif stood before a panel of donors, hands clasped behind his back. They praised him. Spoke of legacy, of big changes, of new directions for the foundation. But as he scanned the room, something felt wrong. He saw suits. He saw power. He didn't see the children, or the quiet, or her. After the meeting, the same board member who had cornered Mira found him in the hallway. "Excellent performance," she smiled. He didn't return it. "I never liked this stage. You belong on it." He stared at her, his voice low. "Not if it means standing alone." And he walked away. Meanwhile, Mira had buried herself in her routines. She returned to the library, refused interviews, blocked calls she didn't recognize. Her world had narrowed again, but this time it didn't feel safe. Felt like grieving someone still alive. Until one afternoon, she returned home to find something resting against her door. Book. The Velveteen Rabbit. Inside, a handwritten note. "You made me real." And beneath it, a boarding pass. No name. No pressure. Just a date and destination. 3 days later, Gangad. Place where they had once breathed without fear. She clutched the book to her chest and cried. Not because she missed him, but because he still saw her. But the world doesn't loosen its grip so easily. The day before she was meant to leave, the scandal hit. An internal leak from the foundation. Massive misappropriation of charity funds, again. And this time they tried to pin it on Arif. Not for what he'd done, but because of who he refused to become again. A silent partner in their corruption. The media turned savage. Malhotra scandal repeats. Is the Millionaire still just a mirage? And once more Mira's name was dragged into it. Only this time she didn't hide. She stood outside the school, surrounded by microphones, and said clearly, "I'm not here for attention, but I won't let truth be buried again." Arif Malhotra saved lives. Mine included. The video went viral. But more importantly, it bought him time. That night, Arif was arrested for investigation. The board had thrown him to the wolves. But before he was taken, he made a call. To her. "They won't let me speak," he said. "But I left something for you. If I don't come back, don't wait. Just live." The line went dead. Mira stood in the rain outside the police station for hours. The city never got their wedding of the year. They got a single blurry photo taken by a fruit vendor, showing Mira and Arif barefoot under a banyan tree, with flower petals in their hair and joy in their eyes. No press, no suit, no gown, just love. And a promise they didn't need to speak. Months passed, then years, and their story became less about romance and more about legacy. Mira opened 6 more schools under the Quiet Trust banner. Arif led mental health programs in forgotten rural belts. Together they built not a foundation but a movement. And in every classroom, every clinic, one quote was painted in bold, careful letters. "Once you are real, you can't become unreal again. It lasts for always." The children didn't know it came from the Velveteen Rabbit. But they felt it. And that was enough. So what happens when a shy girl gives anonymously? What happens when a broken millionaire sees worth not in gold, but in grace? They create a world where no one has to scream to be seen. Where kindness is currency. Where quiet things matter. Because sometimes the smallest acts echo the loudest across time. And sometimes love doesn't shout. Simply stays.